Good morning, club members. We digest world-class journalism and talk it through in plain English. Here are 5 stories worth your time. Short sellers made over $2 billion this past year, betting against small nuclear reactor companies. Investors had pushed these startup shares to dizzying heights during the recent boom. They believed artificial intelligence data centers would need vast amounts of clean power immediately. Shares in young firms like NuScale, Nanonuclear, and Oklo surged last autumn. Since then, over $30 billion in collective value has vanished into thin air. Another company, X-Energy, lost nearly $6 billion shortly after its debut this spring. The reason for this sudden collapse comes down to practical engineering and money. These small modular reactors are designed to be built in factories to save time. They produce far less electricity than traditional nuclear stations, but they promise faster delivery. Tech giants love the idea of plugging data centers directly into compact reactors. However, building new nuclear hardware requires massive upfront capital and strict safety approvals. Right now, most of these public companies earn almost zero revenue. They are loss-making enterprises, facing many years of development before selling any power. In fact, only 2 commercial small reactors operate anywhere in the world today. Both of those operational reactors are located in Russia and China. Short sellers noticed that stock prices had drifted entirely away from actual business progress. They borrowed shares and sold them, betting that the market hype would soon deflate. Nearly 30% of available shares in some firms were out on loan. That short bet paid off handsomely as investor sentiment began to turn. To be fair, future demand for electrical power is not imaginary. American data center electricity needs could jump from 35 gigawatts to over 100 gigawatts within 10 years. Big technology firms are already funding advanced reactor research with upfront cash injections. Yet cash cannot magically speed up the slow process of building nuclear infrastructure. Government support and political enthusiasm cannot replace years of rigorous safety testing either. As a result, investors are growing far more critical of empty balance sheets. 2 more nuclear companies prepare to list their shares on the market soon. Their public debut will test whether investors have truly grown cautious or remain easily swayed. For our second story, we turn to a market where big global money has stopped moving. 10 of the world's largest buyout firms have made 0 new investments in mainland China this year. In the first 7 months of 2026, they did not fund a single deal there. That is a dramatic drop from 3 deals last year and 2 in 2024. 5 years ago, these same firms backed roughly a dozen Chinese companies each year. Now, the flow of private capital into the country has almost completely dried up. Why are international fund managers keeping their hands in their pockets? The main worry is not how to invest, but how to get their money back out. Private equity firms make their living by buying businesses, growing them and selling them later. In China, finding that profitable exit has become extremely difficult. Last year, those same 10 buyout giants completed 0 full sales of their Chinese holdings. At the same time, officials in Beijing have tightened scrutiny over foreign deals in sensitive sectors. Regulators recently blocked an American tech giant from buying a Chinese-founded artificial intelligence startup. They also held up a large sale of international shipping ports to a Western consortium. Unpredictable tax enforcement and political rules have made wealthy institutional backers very nervous. Many investors feel the potential profit is simply not worth all the growing hassle. They believe they can find similar returns with far less risk closer to home. As a result, global investment firms are moving their capital elsewhere across the region. They are raising record-breaking funds, focused heavily on Japan, India, and Australia instead. One firm recently closed an Asian fund worth over $15 billion. Another completed a fund worth more than $13 billion. Yet fund managers admit China now accounts for only around 10% of these plans. Meanwhile, advisors in Hong Kong say the flow of deals has actually reversed direction. They are increasingly helping Chinese companies that want to make investments outside China. Some dealmakers still hope this drought in deal-making might begin to ease soon. Political tensions cooled slightly after the leaders of both nations met in May. Company valuations have also dropped, which could make non-sensitive industries look attractive again. But for now, global buyout firms are staying firmly on the sidelines. They need to know they can take their profits home before they risk another dollar. For our third story, we head to Japan, where empty offices are almost impossible to find. Across major Western capitals, office towers are still struggling to fill their floors. In Los Angeles, more than 21% of office space sits empty. New York still sees 12% of its corporate desks go unused. Even in Paris, roughly 10% of office space remains vacant today. In Tokyo, however, the empty office rate has plunged to just 1.5%. That is the lowest vacancy level among all major cities in the world. Back in 2023, Tokyo reached its pandemic peak with over 5% vacancy. Since then, demand has recovered faster than anywhere else in the developed world. Why are Japanese workers returning to desks while Western staff stay at home? Part of the answer lies in corporate culture and employee training. Japanese companies moved very quickly to bring staff back after the pandemic ended. By early 2026, nearly 59% of Japanese workers were back on site. That is noticeably higher than the global average. Business leaders in Tokyo believe that junior staff learn best through face-to-face contact. They view the physical office as the main engine for developing young talent. Office furniture makers report high demand for meeting rooms and training areas. Several big internet firms have recently cancelled work-from-home policies altogether. Others now require staff to attend their central Tokyo offices several days each week. Good office space has also become essential for hiring and keeping top talent. Young professionals are actively drawn to modern buildings in central business districts. On average, office towers in Tokyo are newer and better equipped than Western properties. Technology and contract styles have also played an unexpected role. In the West, rapid adoption of artificial intelligence tools is changing the workplace. Western companies are gaining efficiency from AI and shrinking their real estate needs. Japan has adopted AI tools more slowly, keeping traditional office staffing levels steady. Lease contracts in Japan also give businesses far more flexibility. European and American firms sign long leases, which makes them hesitant to commit to space. Japanese leases are shorter, so companies can adjust their floor plans much faster. Yet this booming market is now running into a serious obstacle. Construction costs in Japan are soaring, and building labour is in short supply. Developers have already delayed or cancelled several major new office towers. If supply stalls while companies keep hiring, Tokyo may soon run out of space entirely. For our fourth story today, we turn from Tokyo offices to the world of fast fashion. The online retail giant Shein has built a massive business on very cheap clothes. Its rapid rise made it one of the most popular shopping apps on the planet. Yet the company has also made a huge number of enemies along the way. Fashion brands have always borrowed ideas and trends from one another. However, many designers argue that Shein crosses the legal line far too often. Since the start of 2023, Shein has faced over 100 copyright lawsuits in America. The legal complaints come from small independent creators and giant luxury houses alike. Famous shoemakers and eyewear brands have even sued the platform multiple times. Some companies found exact copies of their goods that still carried their original logos. Shein offers more than 2 million distinct products on its website at any given time. It tests new items in tiny batches and tracks user clicks in real time. When a particular design goes viral, partner factories quickly manufacture thousands more. For years, investors treated design lawsuits as a routine cost of doing business. With so many items on sale, paying damages for a few mistakes seemed manageable. If a brand complained, Shein could quietly settle the dispute and remove the product. Today, the real threat to the business is not just angry competitors. Government regulators are now stepping in with far more power. The United States Federal Trade Commission is currently investigating Shein's American operations. At the same time, European officials are investigating the company under strict digital market laws. The European Union recently fined another giant Chinese marketplace over €500 million. A penalty of that size would wipe out nearly a third of Shein's yearly profits. Shein says it spends heavily on safety and removes hundreds of rule-breaking sellers. Still, the bad publicity comes at an awkward moment for the firm. Shein is preparing to list its shares on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Earlier listing plans in New York and London collapsed under heavy political pressure. Its estimated market value has dropped from $100 billion to under $30 billion. Young shoppers still love the low prices and endless variety. Yet Shein must now prove its fast model can survive when regulators demand real accountability. For our final story today, we turn from global fashion to the finances of disease control. A deadly outbreak of Ebola has returned to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. More than 2,000 people have already died from the virus. The United Nations warns that the outbreak could push 1 million people into extreme poverty. To fight this epidemic, the country needs every penny it can find. Yet the Congo currently owes more than $3 billion to the International Monetary Fund. In the coming years, its debt payments will quickly eat up scarce emergency funds. The IMF actually has a special fund designed for moments like this. It is called the Catastrophe Containment and Relief Trust. This relief trust pays off loan bills so poor countries can focus on saving lives. There is just one serious problem right now. The relief fund is now almost completely out of money. The fund spent most of its cash during the coronavirus pandemic. Today, only $120 million remains in the account. That is not even enough to cover 1 year of debt relief for the Congo. It certainly cannot protect 30 other vulnerable nations that might need help. Usually, the IMF responds to an emergency by asking rich member countries for donations. These begging rounds take time, and political debates often delay urgent support. Economists are now pointing toward an unusual store of wealth sitting in the IMF vaults. The IMF holds around 90 million ounces of physical gold. Most of this gold was acquired decades ago at very low prices. With gold prices high today, that metal holds hundreds of billions in unrealized profits. The gold currently sits in vaults and generates no regular income. Advocates suggest selling a very small fraction of this gold reserve. The profits could create a permanent fund that pays for disaster relief forever. That would stop the IMF from begging for donor cash after every single crisis. Major member governments must now decide whether to unlock that stored treasure. Without a permanent fix, poor countries facing health emergencies will keep paying the price. That brings us to the end of today's stories. Thank you for sharing your breakfast with me, and I will see you tomorrow morning.